ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So Guru Pyari Sahib Sangat Ji, I'm not a seasoned speaker and I get awkward in front of big crowds, so please forgive me for being if I'm awkward, but show of hands, how many people here have a mind? Very good. So the mind is a topic that is a cause of a lot of stigma, shame, guilt, secrecy, and misunderstanding. At the same time, the mind is our personal identity when we come into this world. The mind is what goes through reincarnation. The mind is what goes through suffering. The mind is what goes through pleasure. And Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, they guide us on how to conquer the mind. So this journey of the mind and the battle of the mind is so important. But what happens when the same mind that we're trying to conquer, the same mind that we're trying to get across this world ocean, like Gurbani tells us, is afflicted by diseases? So I'm going to be talking about this topic with a lot of different levels, because even Gurbani goes through the journey of the mind in a lot of different levels. And sometimes when we read Gurbani, we just make an assumption that Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is speaking to us in that moment, whereas even Guru Sahib explains that there's different avasthas of the mind, different stages of the mind, and according to that, Guruji gives the right teaching or the right medication or the right meditation at that time. So before we get into the teachings of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji about the mind, or how the mind can heal itself, or how Guruji heals the mind, I want to talk about just the concept of mental illness. Because when we even say the words mental illness or mental health, automatically we feel a little bit nervous. We feel that this is a topic that could go one way or the other. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of the reasons is that we don't know how there's a wide range of feelings and emotions and health and wellness and illness for the mind. And we think in just extremes. So I wanted to show this graphic to you to represent what kind of stages are there of the mind. One spectrum on this is mental health, and the other spectrum is mental illness. So health just means vitality, vibrancy. Health means how you feel on a day-to-day basis with your life, how content you are, how happy you are, how satisfied you are with your life. On the other hand, illness is something that affects your brain, the physical brain, your body, and that is also a spectrum. You could be very, very acutely affected. You could be having a nervous breakdown. You could be having a panic attack. You could be having major depressive disorder. Or, on the other hand, you could be completely healthy. And there's a lot of people who are completely mentally healthy, however, their mental health is still not very good. Meaning that they don't have any mental illness, but they also don't feel vibrant, they don't feel happy, they don't feel content with their life. They don't feel satisfied, they don't feel gratitude every day. And so Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji speaks about both spectrums, both sides of this. And when we get into this, we start to wonder, so where should I be, or where am I now? And even now, as you're sitting here, you might be thinking, okay, I stand on this side, I stand on that side. And a lot of times, we don't know how to differentiate between these two things. We think that just because we are sad, that we might have a mental illness. Or just because we have a mental illness, that we will always be sad. So, sorry. Okay. So I know that there's a lot of people here who might have gone through different things throughout their life. The statistics is 1 in 4 people will be affected by mental illness at any time in the year, and at any time through their life they will go through this. And people who are affected by mental illness, it could present itself in a lot of different ways. So, for example, there's a lot of different ranges of anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorder, if we wanted to say it in terms of Punjabi, we would say chinta. There's a big difference between chinta and fikr. Fikr just means when you're worried, when you have worries, day-to-day worries. And we all have day-to-day worries. For example, the mother, she left home and she forgot to make food for the daughter. So the mother has fikr that my daughter didn't have lunch yet. And I have to go home because she has mamta, she has that maternal instinct that she wants to take care of her daughter. On the other hand, chinta is something that is chronic. It's consistent. It prevents you from participating in the activities that you like to do. It prevents you from getting proper sleep, from eating a good diet. And what kind of disorders are there that classify under anxiety? Panic disorder, agoraphobia, social anxiety disorder, phobia of different types of things. So people are scared of different types of things. Post-traumatic stress disorder. So trauma happens when something all of a sudden takes place in your life and you're not prepared to adjust with that all of a sudden. And it could be being abused as a child. It could be losing a close family member. It could be going through conflict or coming from a country where there was a lot of conflict and immigrating, being a refugee, being an immigrant. These are all traumas. And then there's also obsessive compulsive and just generalized anxiety disorder. And all of these present in different ways. And Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, they also give us different examples of chinta, of fikr. Then there's also mood disorders. So mood disorders means when our emotions are high and low. Bipolar disorder, depression, major depressive disorder, dysthymia. Dysthymia means when you are in a state of malaise regularly. So, for example, you're not completely depressed, but you're always sad. And you don't know why. Sometimes it's easy for you to cry, or it's easy for you to feel upset. But it's not just something that happens once in a while because someone hurt your feelings or because something happened. It happens all the time, even when you're with your family and everyone is celebrating, but you still have this something in the pit of your stomach that doesn't let you feel fulfilled all the time. There's also different types of eating disorders. And people, why do they get different types of disorders? We'll talk about that as well. And eating disorders could be something that happens because of your circumstances also. And some of the other ones are psychosis, schizophrenia, and personality disorders. And a lot of times these are mixed up. People aren't able to differentiate. What's the difference between psychosis and schizophrenia? Psychosis could be a full-blown disorder, or it could just be a symptom of a disorder. So it's really important to know what are the differences. And I'm not going to go into deep discussion about what are the differences, but I just wanted to bring them up in point form for you. Some of the other ones, I'm sorry that this is so small, but there's also different types of dependencies that we get on different substances or on different habits. And we could get into why do we get these dependencies. Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji talks about it, psychologists talk about it. Why do we get dependent on different things? Because maybe we have a void that we're trying to fill, or maybe someone introduced us to that dependency, or maybe we were born with a propensity towards that dependency. Maybe we were born with the genetics or the biology that we would easily get dependent. Let's say, for example, you have that and then you get into a car accident and you have to take super strong painkillers, and you never would have originally been dependent on it, but because biologically you were prone to that, then that could start as well. So what kind of different substances? And in Gurbani it talks about a lot of these. It talks about alcohol, it talks about tobacco, it talks about opioids. And there's a lot of different ones that we take. And some of these, we attach a lot of guilt to them onto other people. We say that if somebody else is alcoholic, that person is immoral. Or we say that if somebody else smokes marijuana, that person is immoral. However, it depends where they started with that addiction and why they started on that addiction. And it also depends on if they're conscious of their addictive behavior. A lot of people, they don't know. It's like a slippery slope. They get started and then they're not able to control how fast they're traveling down this addiction. And then there's also impulse control disorders. So being very aggressive and not be able to manage your anger, or not able to stop stealing. The example that we always use in Gurbani is Bhumya Chor. And Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji was able to do his udar as well, just with a little nukta, just by helping him to shift his behavior. Pyromania, gambling, even in Gurbani by Gurdas Ji, they say to themselves, they call themselves Juar, Hon, Barka, Johanda. They use the example for themselves that I go and I do gambling. But why does Bhai Gurdas Ji, or why does Gurbani use those examples to give us somewhere to fit our mind into that example? Because Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is a doctor for us as well. And if we didn't see ourselves in Gurbani, then we wouldn't have anything to connect with. And that's why Guruji uses a lot of these different examples. And then behavioral. So people can get attached to food, sex, pornography, using computers and internet too much, playing video games, working too much, exercising. And over here it says spiritual obsession. So Gurbani also talks about Sahaj Marg, how Gurbani, how the Sikhi path is about love. However, we see a lot of people who are very fervent about their religious beliefs, but andron prem hai nahi. They don't have the love, and the reason is because they're attached to that external in order to fulfill something that they're missing, but they don't follow according to what Guru Granth Sahib Ji says to fill that. Instead, they're more attached to the external, or they're more attached to certain rules and regulations, but not the prem inside. And other things like inflicting pain on yourself, or even shopping. So, where do they come from? Where do all these rogues come from? There's Vagyanak Soch and there's Guru Granth Sahib Ji's Gyan. What does Guru Granth Sahib Ji teach us? So there's been different research studies on where do they come from. Some people say that they come from your genetics. Some people say that they come from the circuitry inside of your brain. And these researchers, they say studying unconscious processes, motivation, or defenses at one time was the sole province of psychoanalytic therapy. So people used to say, what happened to you when you were a kid? You know, what happened to you when you were a kid? What is going on? What happened to you? And then that might be the cause. But now people are also starting to discover that it's not only what happens to you, but it could just be the way that you're made up, the way that your body is made up, the way that your genes are, the way your biology is. And the American Psychiatric Association says that they still don't know the exact cause of a lot of mental disorders. And they can theorize, they can say that this, in a lot of patients, it seems to be this way. In a lot of patients, it seems to be this way based on research studies. And some of the things that they see that correlate, that cause mental illness, poverty, stress, and things that happen to you in your childhood, your biology, a lot of these different components, they lead up to, they trigger it. And you might already have this in your genes, but then something that happens in your life triggers it. So according to Gurbani, what are the diseases? Gurbani says that there are diseases of our mind. Then there's also diseases of our body. And then there's Home Rog. There's a disease of our mind which is on the other side, which is not just sadness or happiness or any of those, but it's the biggest rog. It's the biggest rog, and Gurbani uses examples of different rogs that were given to different animals. The elephant was given a certain rog, the deer was given a certain rog, and Bhagat Ravidas ji says, what can a human being do when the human being has all of those rogs, plus homme too? So Bhai Gurdas ji explains this. He says, what kind of situation are we in? What kind of state are we in? They say, Maya, Shaya, Panch, Dood, Poot, Udamad, Tat, Kat, Kat, Katka, Mein Sagar, Anek hai. Aud Pal, Katka, Jugad, Parjant, Asa, Lehar Tarang, Mein Na Trishna Ki Tek hai. So please forgive me if I'm making any mistakes in the Ucharan. But they say that these Panch Dood, Kam, Kro, Lobh, Moh, Hankar, they've created so much turbulence in our mind. And because of that turbulence, there's so many waves that come from that turbulence. So when there's an earthquake, and then the earthquake causes a tsunami, and the tsunami comes onto the shore, and then the buildings are destroyed and people lose their lives, all of this starts from that earthquake. But where does the earthquake start from? Where does the tremors start from? It starts from Homme, and then out of the Homme, the Panjdut. And they say that our life is so short, but we have so many expectations. We have so many asa. And because of all those asa, these are taranga in our thoughts. Our thoughts are constant taranga. And one on top of the other, one on top of the other. And who knows for how many lifetimes these taranga have been flowing to the extent that now we're in this life form. They say, Man mansa prasang tavat chatur gunt chinak mein khand brahmand jav dekh hai. In just 1 second, the mind is able to go to khand brahmand, different worlds, different universes. Why does that happen? Because we have so many cravings and desires. If we try to sit down for 1 minute and do Simran, within that 1 minute we go and do the grocery, we go and put gas in the car, we go and pay our bills, within that 1 minute. And then they use the example of these 3 different rogs. They say, Adaka, Vyadaka, Upadaka, Sad Man, Sadako ko charan saran gur ek hai. So they say that if we want to do sudhar of this man, if we want to help this mind, then coming into the charan saran of Guruji is the strongest method. And now, I've just started to say this early into my presentation, and right away there's probably a few people whose red flag went up. Because a lot of times when we say things like this, what we mean to say, andron, is counseling di ki lord nahi, therapy di koi lord nahi, dwai di koi lord nahi. That's what people mean to say when they say that. But when you're in a state of being where your man da, Sarir da santulan, your balance is not there, then it's difficult or impossible to move to the next step. So you have to stabilize your mind and your body before you can. That's why, like last week when I spoke at Nihal, I used the udaharan of how Guruji talks about old age. They say, Jab lag jara rog nahi aaya, jab lag kaal grasi nahi kaya. When you get older, hopefully none of us have this affliction, but a lot of people, you see them, they are unable to talk clearly, or they're unable to walk on their own, or they stutter. And a lot of these are different afflictions of old age. And then they say that jab lag jara rog nahi aaya. When we get different diseases, then it's very difficult for us to do Simran. And they say, Jab lag bikal pai nahi bani pajda re man sarang bani. Until you are able to say Vaheguru, say it. Until you're able to say it. But when you're unable to say it, then it becomes very difficult. But what about those people who can't? Is it their fault? Are they cursed? Guruji says no. Guruji doesn't say that you are cursed forever. Guruji does not say that the person who is going through a hard time they're going to be stuck in that. There is still a way out. What is the way out? Bhai Gurdas Ji says, Puran Brahm Gur, Puran Kripa Jo Kara. Hare Haume Rog, Ride Nimarta Nivas Hai. So they say when Guru Sahib Ji does Kirpa on us, then our Haume Rog goes away. When Haume Rog goes away, then all other Rog also go away. But Haume Rog kitna dur jayega? That seems like, Mount Everest. Sun Galla Kaas Ki Kita Airis. It seems like impossible. How will that happen? They say, Sabd Surt Livneen, Sad Sang Mil, Pavni, Bhagt Pai, Dugda Binas Hai. By coming into the Sangat. Sangat is this boat that Guru Sahib has created, that just by getting onto that boat, you start making progress forward. When someone gets onto a boat, they don't have to get in their car while they're on their boat. They don't have to walk while they're on the boat. The boat is moving already. So all they have to do is get on the boat. But there's a lot of people out there who have a mental illness and they're not even able to get on the boat. What does that mean? They're not able to get out of their house. They're not able to get out of their room. They're not able to get out of their bed. They're not able to get out of their mind. So how can Guruji help with that? Guruji says, Prem ras amrit nidan pan puran hoye, bism biswas bikhe anpa abhyas hai. So what did they say? They say that when you start doing Simran and you get ras of Simran, then you start feeling an umaha, a chaha for life again. And a lot of the reason that people feel udas or they feel hopeless is because they don't feel that cha anymore. And Guru Sahib Ji really wants each and every one of us to have that cha, to have that kitch. And how do we get that kitch? They say, Sahaj Subhaye Jai Chinta Mein Ajit Jeet Atit Jeet Satgur Sat Gurmat Gurdas Hai. Holi Holi Sahaj Subhaye, as we are following Guruji's path, our chinta goes away and we start aligning ourselves with Guruji's teachings. But does this mean that you don't take medication? Does this mean that you don't go to counseling? Does this mean that you don't talk to your family about mental illness? No. Those things are necessary, again, to get your body and your mind into a balance. That also doesn't mean that everyone needs medication. Some people never need it. Some people don't go to such acute condition where they need it. Some people, they can change their diet and their health gets better. Some people can start doing exercise and their health gets better. Some people can change their environment. Like we talked about before, your environment has a big effect on you. Let's say, for example, there's a young woman, she got married, she moved here. She lives with her in-laws now, and when she's living with her in-laws, her husband is alcoholic, her mother-in-law puts her down all the time. There's no wonder that she's going to have stress. Maybe if her environment is changed, she'll have less stress. So a lot of those things are step-by-step things that we can do to help our mental health and to fix or to better the symptoms of our mental illness. And a lot of times we start to think that somebody who is free of rog, because Sikhi teaches ape bij ape hi khao, apne karm ki gat main kya jano. We always learn from Gurbani that all of the things that happened in the past, things that we did in our last lives, that's the natija that we are having now. That's what we are going through right now. And then because of that, sometimes we think those people who are very healthy and happy, they must be Gurmukhs. Those people who are very successful and those people who look great, they must be Gurmukhs. But Guruji says no. Just because you don't have disease, just because you don't have any affliction, doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden closer to Vaheguru. And sometimes we put them on a moral pedestal. Guru Sahib Ji says, Kaya rog na chhidr kich, na kich kada sog, ਮਿਰਤ ਨਾ ਆਵੀ ਚਿਤ ਤਿਸ ਅਹਨਸ ਭੋਗੈ ਭੋਗ ਸਭ ਕਿਛ ਕੀਤੋਨ ਆਪਣਾ ਜੀਅ ਨਸੰਕ ਧਰਿਆ ਚਿਤ ਨਾ ਆਇਓ ਪਾਰ ਬ੍ਰਹਮ ਜਮ ਕੰਕਰ ਵਸ ਭਰਿਆ. So they say, even if you're able to do everything that you want to do, you could be in a fully, financially stable situation, you could have a beautiful house, but if you're not doing Simran, then you're still not on the boat to Vaheguru. And so it's really important not to place people on a higher or a lower position just because of the diseases that they have. We wouldn't do it to somebody who has cancer. We wouldn't do it to somebody who has AIDS. We wouldn't do it to somebody who has diabetes. And a lot of times, we wouldn't even bring it up. If somebody says, I went to the doctor and I got diagnosed with high cholesterol, you wouldn't even say, Chalo karma dikhe dia. Because karma doesn't even come in your mind when you think of cholesterol. Karma doesn't even come in your mind when you think of, cancer. Cancer maybe because it's more severe, but a lot of the diseases that we talk about, like diabetes and arthritis and things like that. And a lot of these mental disorders, they're in the same vein. They're physical illnesses, but we attach a lot of shame and guilt to them. Does Guru Sahib Ji want us to always constantly be in shame and guilt? No. So by Harinam Singh Khalsa, in one of their kathas, they say that the exact formula for healing exists in Gurbani, and we only have to trust it. So Guru Sahib Ji gives us a guarantee. They give us a honsla. What kind of honsla do they give? They say, Jako chinta bahut bahut dehi vyapa rog, grist kutam paletya kade hark kade sog. You all can relate to this because you all live within a house, you all live within a family. Sometimes there's joy, sometimes there's sorrow. We use a personal example. This morning there was a wedding of the people in our basement, and it was my Mamaji's funeral on the same day. So that's what happens in life. There's happiness and sadness in the same house on the same day. Gaun kare chaho kuntka kadi na vyasan soye, chit ave os par brahm tan man seetal hoye. If we remember Vaheguruji with pyar, it's not an instant cure because it's a journey. Our vichars that have been coming in our mind for so many janams, they don't get erased right away. But those people who have Puran Vishwash, they can. Ek chit jah ek chinate ayo, kal fas ke beech na ayo. Guru Sahib gives that promise as well. So now, by Gurdas Ji, a lot of times we wonder, did Gurbani actually talk about these serious illnesses? Does Bhai Gurdas Ji talk about them? Does Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji talk about them? And how do they talk about them? So, Bhai Gurdas Ji, he explains that people who have addiction, even if they want to get out, they can't get out. He uses that example. He says that somebody who's a gambler, even if he loses all of his money and he's crying that he lost all of his money, but he can't stop the sangat of other gamblers. And he says a thief who's stealing, the thief might be very scared that they're going to get caught. They know kise na kise din mainu police ne fad lena. But what happens? He's not going to stop stealing until he gets caught. And even sometimes people get caught and then there's recidivism. People go back into those habits. And it's the same situation for us in our day-to-day life. They say, Taise sab kahat sunat maya dukhdai. Sare kehte hain. Everyone says Maya is very painful, Maya is so chalak, Maya is so controlling. And then they say, Kahu pena jeeti. Kahu pena jeeti parai Maya jag lutai. This Maya has taken over the whole world. This Traguni Sansar, it has taken over the whole world. And we all know it. But how do we get out of it? This is our situation that we feel stuck in. And the reason for these being stuck is our thoughts. Where do we put and register our thoughts? A lot of the illnesses that we experience, they're all part of Rajogun. And we have asa, vilasa, chinta, fikr, we have hopes and desires and worries and fears. And a lot of the immediate, the acute issues that we have, they come out of tamogun, when we have lust and anger and attachment and greed. And then a lot of the sukham rog that we have, such as home, there's a lot of religious people, a lot of people like me who wear gatra, wear the star, who have sukham home. Sukham home, what does that mean? Baron dikhava, but andron there's home. Because we think that we are religious. We think that we are nitnimi, we think that we go to Sangat, we do Kirtan, that's why we are better than other people. But that's also a rog. And that's the biggest rog, Guru Sahib Ji says. So sometimes we even feel arrogant that I don't have those rogs, but I'm a little bit better than those people. But even that sense of being a little bit better is a rog in itself. So how can we cure that? Does Guru Sahib Ji want us to curse each other? Does Guru Sahib Ji want us to out each other? Now in this social media, the joke, everybody loves to out each other. Everybody loves to pinpoint each other and say, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਉਹ ਗ੍ਰੰਥੀ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਗੋਲਕ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਪੈਸੇ ਚੋਰੀ ਕਰਤੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਲਓ ਰਾਈਟ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਓ ਉਹ ਦੂਜੇ ਗ੍ਰੰਥੀ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਕ੍ਰਸ਼ ਪਲੇ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਰਾਈਟ we love to out people but we never would love it if we were outed. Guru Sahib Ji knows what's happening inside our mind. Guru Sahib Ji knows what's happening inside our heart. And if that was broadcast on ZTV, if that was broadcast on all the different channels, we would be so embarrassed. But we do the same thing to people who have rog. People who are in downtown East Side, who are suffering from mental health disorders, we stigmatize them. We say, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਈ ਕਰਮਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੋਣਾ ਆ, which is true according to Gurbani that everything is because of karam. But that's our default instead of having compassion first. We say, Sanu ki lena dena unna de naal, right? So there's a writer who did a talk on addiction, and the talk was about how people who were suffering from addiction, they actually did a lot of research studies on how they got better. And getting better was not only through morality or through giving them ultimatums or guilt. Getting better was through getting back into society. And so he says for hundreds of years we've been singing war songs about addicts. I think all along we should have been singing love songs to them. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. So why do we get addicted to different substances and habits? It's because we are not connected on the other side to the things that fulfill us, to the things that give us happiness and fulfillment. So what does Guru Sahib Ji say is going to give us happiness and fulfillment? They say, Lalla lavo aukhad jahu, duk dard tehmitah khinahu, naam aukhad jahridah hitavah, tahe rog supna nahi aave. That's so powerful. But it's so unbelievable too. A lot of people will say, there go the religious people again saying that Naam is going to fix everything. No, it's not going to fix everything. Don't you know? I've been doing Simran and it hasn't got fixed. Everyone loves to use their personal anecdote and say, well, this thing didn't happen. I did it 17 times and we still didn't get a bigger house, or things like that. But Guru Sahib Ji says that how? You have to take it in your heart. How do you take it in your heart? When you're at that level where every single swas is absorbed in Naam. When every single swas is absorbed in Naam, then what happens is naturally you have less vichars, you have less thoughts. When you have less thoughts, then those thoughts can't sit anywhere. Where do they sit? There's a kahavat, very common kahavat, Bela man shaitan takar, right? When your mind is free, it's wandering, it can just go anywhere. It's happened to me many times in my life. And what does that mean? That means when we put our thoughts not carefully in something that will lead us on the right path, it will inevitably lead us on the wrong path. Why? Because they say, Amrit luta manmukh nahi puja. The panch chor, that's their job. They're not even bad. They're not even bad. Guru Sahib Ji gave them a job. but we don't understand what they're doing when we get distracted. So there's a lot of positives of getting into Sangat. There's a lot of positives of having this structure which we are blessed with. For example, you get into Sangat, you have support. You feel like you're part of a community. When you sit in Langar, you sit in Pangat, you feel you're common with everyone else. You do Seva, you feel like you have a purpose in your life. You feel like you're going towards some goal. You come into Gurdwara Sahib, you feel like it's a sanctuary. It's safe. It's a safe place. And unfortunately, some people have even made the Gurdwara Sahib not feel safe, which is something that we should work on. Meditation gives you clarity of purpose, clarity from all the thoughts that are clouding your mind. And when we do Katha Vichar, then we get perspective. Because in order to get over this Rajo Tamo Sato, we need Gyan and Dhyan. But in order to get Gyan, we need to do Vichar of Gurbani. So the Gurdwara Sahib provides that. And different schools like Academy provide that. And when we do discussion with Sangat, then we get provided with empathy. But the reason that we don't have empathy is we don't like talking about this. We don't like to talk about our own weaknesses or our own troubles because we are very scared that it's going to go out. And sometimes it's very good to be safe and to protect yourself because you can't trust everybody. And it has to be a safe and supportive environment. When you go to camps, when you do activities, then you get physical activity and exercise, and those are all proven to help with mental illness. But what are some of the downsides when you come to the Gurdwara Sahib? Gossip. When people come to the Gurdwara Sahib, they talk about each other. They talk about what's happening with this neighbor or that chacha or that dai. When you come to the Gurdwara Sahib, sometimes you feel like a stranger, especially if you're new in the town. A lot of people are coming to Vancouver from different countries, and I'm sure that when they go to the Gurdwara Sahib, they actually feel lonely because they see so many different groups interacting, and we have a very clique type of atmosphere where different Jathibandiyan, they want to just stay in their own Jathibandi. And it's hard to get involved in a new Jathibandi. And when people use language in the Gurdwara Sahib that excludes other people, for example, Langar Seva de vich Bibiyan di lod hai. Singhs can never do Langar Seva, right? Or when we are on the stage and we say certain things about Singhs and then we exclude the Bibiyan. Or when we reiterate misunderstandings and stigma in the language that we use when we give speeches and do katha on the stage. So these are all things that we could get trained on. We could take initiative to learn about mental health, learn about mental illness, and learn how to make the Gurdwara Sahib more of a sanctuary, more of a welcoming place, more of a safe space. So this is an example of Baljeet Singh from Basics of Sikhi. He talks very courageously about his own experience with alcohol and drugs. And that's one example of someone who's gone through hardship and made a big turn, made a big change in his life. But he explains when he was trying to test it and he failed the test. He says, Maharaj says, Sangat ka gun bahut adhkai, the effect of Sangat is very great, and I thought I could still associate with the same friends. So he thought, these friends, they go out drinking and clubbing and everything, and I can still hang out with them. I could still be the same amongst the same people and I wouldn't be affected, but I was so wrong. Because of that, I had a roller coaster of a life for about 10 years and trying to be in Sikhi, but I just keep falling off. I'd last about a year and then drink again, then last 2 years and I'd fall off again. And how courageous is it of a Gursikh to say that openly, that I've been through this hardship and I tried to do this is my advice to you. And we should feel safe enough to be that open in the Sangat. The Sangat should be a support group rather than a Ninda Jugali group. So, what does he say? He says, I tried to stay with the same friends, but it made my life worse. So, Guru Sahib Ji wants us to be in the right Sangat as well. And Bhai Nandlal Ji gives us encouragement. They say, you need to recognize that you can conquer this. A lot of times people, they feel hopeless, that I can't conquer this, I can't do it. And that hopelessness, it gets contagious to the whole family. Jaise mera ki banunga, mera kuch nahi ho raha. Then they start to get more hopeless and they start to lose faith in Gurbani and go to all of the different Jadoo Tune and 1-800 Babbe and things like that. And those type of things take you even down a further spiral. But Bhai Nandalal ji says that you're one of the rays of divine glow, and you can be engulfed in this divine glow from your head to your toes. So, how do you get rid of your worries and suspicions? By being in His memory. And they say, how long do you want to be anxious? How long do you want to be stuck in anxieties? Now, somebody who, coming from the perspective of somebody who has felt anxiety, this line might feel very insensitive, because somebody is saying directly to you, how long do you want to be anxious? And your response will obviously be, I don't want to be anxious. What do you think? I want to be anxious? You think it's my fault? You think I'm trying to be anxious? You think I'm doing this on purpose? But they say that there's something that you can do that will help you, and without thinking about it, you have to just go ahead and do it. So, for example, when I first got diagnosed with ADHD, I went to a counselor. And during that time, I went through a period where I was depressed and I couldn't get out of the room. I couldn't get up out of my bed. I missed the Nagar Kirtan. I showed up at the last Ardas of Amardeep Singh's wedding. I was late for everything. I wasn't, and I still remember that. I wasn't showing up to events. I was not accountable. I'm still, late for this talk too. But at that time, the counselor just gave us very simple nukta, the simple little tool. They just said, whenever your consciousness, whenever your conscience says that you need to do something, stop thinking. Just get up, get ready, get out. And there's another speaker, I've forgotten her name, but she does another little tool like this, and she's written a book, it's called The 5-Second Rule. And she had been going through a deep depression, she had gone through a lot of hardship, and her husband had lost his job, she had gone through a lot of hardship, and when she wanted to get back into things, she was sitting at home one night and she was watching a TV show, and there was a commercial of a rocket ship taking off. And when she remembers it, she said, this is such a dumb thing that this changed my life. But she says, I saw the rocket ship and I said, tomorrow you're going to be a rocket ship. And she tried to motivate herself. And when she woke up in the morning, I always used to hit the snooze button and just keep on going back to sleep because she didn't want to face her life. And she said that day, I sat up in my bed and I said, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I stood up like a rocket when they do the rocket launch. And when she stood up, she again said, this is so dumb. Why am I doing this? And as she was thinking about this, she said, stop thinking. She said, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She went to the washroom. And by the time she was brushing her teeth and getting showered, she was ready to go for the day. And she started using that little technique to make her, anything that her conscience was telling her that this is important to do, she would go and do it. And by the time she was doing it, the anxiety was already gone. And so there's also a Shabad in Gurbani that says, Pambiri ka paat pardo bin pekhe durayo. Vaheguruji is so far away from us. How far are they? The wing of a butterfly. That's how far they are. But we think they're so far because we can't see them. And in the same way, Bhagat Ravidas ji, they say, Narpat ek singhasan soya sapne paya pakhari. Right? He lost his whole kingdom while he was sleeping. And when he saw that he lost his whole kingdom, he had so much dukh. And then he says, So gat pai hamari, that's our condition. That we are in this supna. And it's happened to me in real life as well. A few weeks ago, I had to go for a doctor's appointment. And while I was dreaming, I had chinta that I was missing a flight. And I'm running to the gate, and I'm trying to get onto the flight. And then when I wake up, I look at the clock and say, oh, I'm late for my doctor's appointment. So sometimes your mind is telling you these things. But what is your mind telling you? Is it actually going to help you, or is it going to hurt you? That's something that you have to distinguish. So they say, get rid of your sorrows and griefs, remember the Lord, and stay safe and secure forever. So there's a few talks about this on the web as well, and from Basics of Sikhi, from different websites and from different camps. One of them, Dr. Ravinder Singh, he says, if we impose our own timeline to a purpose we set, we will be disappointed if it's not met. Expectations will limit you. Your job is to do what you're supposed to do and leave the rest to a God work. So again, for someone who's going through a depression, that seems like a very insensitive comment, because you're telling someone who can't even get out of bed to just listen to Gurbani or to just do Simran. And those are very difficult things to do at the beginning. And I can say that from first-hand experience. But Guru Maharaj is very, very dayalu. They're very, very patient. And they don't want you to go and jump out of bed and go take over the world overnight. It's not possible. They know that everything happens in Sahaj, and they've even instructed us in the same way. So by Nandalal Ji, he says again, he says, what is distress and depression? It's when we are negligent in doing his meditation. And what is pleasure and joy? It's the remembrance of the Almighty. And they use this sadness metaphor in the story of love. Because when we fall in love with Vaheguruji, when we fall in love with Gurbani, when we fall in love with Simran, then there's still sadness there too. There's still sadness there too. There's still bairag there too, but it's a different kind. And we want to get to that experience, but how do we get there? They say that nobody understands that pain either. Just like it's very hard for people to understand this pain, it's very hard for people to understand that pain. Kaun jana peer parai, hum nahi chint parai. They don't know how to understand that pain, and nobody listens to that either. Haan khari to hilli hui Baba Nanak, koi baat na puchhe meri. I feel so lonely because nobody understands what I'm going through. But what helps? There's a lot of things that we can do that will help. We talked about some of these things. Counseling. We have to get over the stigma or the shame that talking to someone is a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's a procedure. It's a process to help us get through hardship. Medication. Medication, sometimes you need, in order to get up, you need a sahara. In order to have balance, you need something on one side, something on the other side. And then there might be a point where you don't need it. Or there might be a lot of people who don't need it at all. Or there might be some people who need it for a long term. There's no shame or guilt in that. Guru Sahib Ji says, continue using Naam Aukar at the same time. Coaching. Coaching is a little bit different from therapy. Because in therapy, they try to understand what difficulties you're going through and then use different types of treatment methodologies to help you get out of that. But coaching, the coach is actually motivational. And that can be towards a career goal or towards a school goal, things like that. Accountability partner. So you might have a friend, you might be married, have a husband, wife, who can help you, who you help them to be accountable about a certain goal, and you're accountable to them about your goal. Positive Sangat, we talked about that. And then also fixing nutritional deficiencies, especially in the Sangat, people who are vegetarian, who have different deficiencies. Sometimes those deficiencies can cause you to have anxiety, to have sadness, when your hormone levels are higher or lower, when different types of vitamins are higher or lower. And sometimes you think that, I am feeling this way because this person said this about me, but actually it's just your B12 is low. or your vitamin D is low, or your thyroid is up or down. So also increasing exercise. I'm not practicing what I preach in that one, but just for the record, I went for a hike yesterday, a walk yesterday. So sleep. Sleep definitely affects your mood. Sleep, if you don't sleep adequately, right? Guru Sahib Ji gives us clear instructions on every stage of life. Alap ahar, sulap si nindra, daya shima tanpreet. They tell us how much to sleep, how much to eat, how to eat, what progress we should make. And then laughter as well. It's important to be with those people who encourage you, who support you. So our mind sometimes feels alone. We don't know where to go, we don't know what to do. But Guru Sahib Ji says, Jah jah man tu taavta, teh teh har tere nade. Guruji is with you all the time, wherever you go. And in the same Shabad, they say, Satgur milaya taavta thamme thammeya nijkar vasya ai. So this wandering, it ends. How does it end? When we get into Guruji's Sharan. And Guruji reminds us that you're not just a wandering human only with mental illness and wellness and mental health. You're something deeper. You're going through an experience. So what is that experience? They say, Man, tu jot sarup hai. What is your actual origin? You attach your identity to your illnesses. You say, I am depression. I am anxiety. You personalize those things onto who you are. But Guru Sahib Ji says, Tu jot sarup hai, apna mool pachan. Recognize where you came from. Man, har chi tera naal hai, gurmati rangman. So if we follow Guruji's teachings and at the same time we take care of our health, do all of the things that we need to do, then we can have that balance and we can, in Guruji's love, have healing and reach Guruji. So, and if anyone has any questions or concerns, I would love to hear them from the Sangat, because when we do Vichar, I know like in a TED Talk style talk, it's not like interactive, but this is a moment where like as a Sangat family, it's really important to talk. And it's really important to get over lok lajja. And that means when we feel ashamed of talking, when we feel ashamed of addressing important issues, then we can't move forward. So it's really important to talk about those so that we can move forward. So please forgive me if I made any mistakes. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.